Welcome everyone to our monthly webinar series. Today, I want to talk to you about how to thrive in a disruptive market, uh, and more specifically, battling against third parties, over-the-counter, and other low-cost solution providers. My name is Randy Schoenborn. I'm a part of the Acuity Hearing Network team. For those of you that don't know, Acuity Hearing Network does a couple different things. One is we provide what we call proprietary connected resources to the hearing health care clinic owner. And what that means is that, for example, we'll provide clinical operation tools and measurements, processes. We provide marketing support. I like to say from a chief marketing officer kind of perspective, where we're providing execution and measurement with marketing. We also can provide financial control resources such as bookkeeping and financial reporting. We provide a full array of human resources, including recruiting, onboarding tools, training tools, administrative kind of support and help. We can also provide insurance billing to you. Maybe most prominent is our ability to provide leadership, kind of come alongside you, leadership encouragement, and help you with your overall organizational strategy. The other thing that we do at Acuity Hearing Network is we own clinics, and by owning clinics or partial equity in clinics, we can it helps us build these resources that I'm talking about. That's us. That's Acuity Hearing Network. Yeah, I want to talk about this idea of thriving in a disruptive market. We're going to ultimately focus on the third party provider disruptors, I might say. But overall, it's really a how do we deal with any kind of low cost provider that's in our marketplace? And I'm going to start from a high altitude. We're going to ultimately land on the ground, and I'm going to give you some very specific, maybe next steps that you can take to thrive in your marketplace. But to start with, I want to talk about it or think about it more in a strategy kind of way. This is a long-term approach. In other words, I'm not going to ever recommend someone might just immediately cut out their third-party providership. It's probably not a prudent thing to do. But if you think about it over a period of 2 years or 3 years or 5 years, you got a better chance of dealing with it. This is an offensive approach. It's an offensive posture. Rather than looking at it defensively, think about it in terms of what are you going to do to thrive in your marketplace. So we're going to start out at a high altitude. One of the things that one of the tools that we use in our strategy comes out of a movement or a book called Scaling Up. It's a Vern Harnish approach, and one of the tools that he offers is the 7 strata tool. Remember, we're talking about strategy here, and who are we, and where do we want to end up? 7 strata. There's 7 blocks here that we've populated over the course of time. It's kind of like a Sudoku puzzle, you might say. We're editing on it virtually all the time. What are the words that we own? That's one kind of block. Here's another block. Who is our core customer? What do we do? What are our brand promises? What are our key performance indicators? We'll dig into a couple of those here in just a minute. What are our brand promise guarantees? Here's an important one. What's our one phrase strategy? We say ear care for life. What are our differentiating activities? We're going to dive into that in a moment as well. What's our X factor? What are the stuck points? We've identified our stuck points as lead acquisition and clinician recruitment. What's our profit per X? What's our BHAG? Where are we going? So we'll dive into some of those blocks here as we're talking about how do we thrive in this disruptive market where we have these low cost providers. Here's a way to look at things from a big picture standpoint. One of the first things that we do when we move into strategy is we like to begin to measure what's going on. And here's one measurement source that we use. It's our market share analysis. And this is an example of a clinic that we own, Tulsa, Oklahoma. In that particular footprint where we're at, we believe there to be 22,000 seniors or 65 and older age-wise. We do I'd say somewhat of an educated random guess, and we say a third of that 22,000 are our market potential. In other words, they'd be candidates for our treatment. And so our market aware, or I'm sorry, and so here's the next one, our prospects plus our customer count. Over the last, this clinic has been in existence for over 60 years. And over the last 60 years, they've acquired and know of 1,400 people still living in that footprint that either have a hearing loss or they're known to wear a hearing aid. In other words, we have a record of their hearing loss and we have a record of what kind of hearing aid that they're wearing. So we have a market awareness in Tulsa of 19%. So then we look at how many of those 1,400 are actually wearing hearing aids. And so we know of 880 folks in that market area that are wearing hearing aids. So we have a market ownership of 12%. And then finally, how many of those 880 folks have we seen in the last year? This is how we would define our active customers. And so you can see of the 22,000 people in Tulsa, we have a market ownership, an active market ownership of right at 6%. You might ask, well, is that good? Is that bad? Well, I'm going to say 10% is better. 15%. I've in working with hundreds of clinics over the years, I've seen as high as 20% market share. And of course, if you're just starting out in a new clinic, you might have 1%. Is 6% good? It can be better. Again, I like 10% or higher. I want to go own some of the market. So again, here's what we're doing. We're thinking about it from a high level strategy standpoint. Our market is finite. It's not infinite. And so getting specific and zeroing in is an important kind of element of how we go approach this. Here's another thought. What are we kind of in the, I'm going to say 7,000 folks that are in that market area? We want to go approach as many as we can, but we know fully that we're not going to hit all of them. And so one of the things that we think about is our model, our business model has a particular pricing point area. And we say it's anywhere between 2,500 and 7,000. That's who we are. And we're more thrilled about the idea of maybe it being 6,000 or 7,000 or 8,000, somewhere in that range is what we're trying to hit. And you can see the other price points, the low cost providers are somewhere in the 1,000, 3,000 area. Third party, somewhere in the 2,000 to 3,000 out of pocket. That's the market that they're hitting. Direct to consumer is a little bit lower. All right. So at the core, what we're trying to get at here is in our marketplace, we're trying to thrive in this disruptive market, competing with the low cost providers. This is a great question. Who is your core customer? Who are we after here? We can't get them all. If we can get to 10%, that's good. You know, and so here's the way we've defined who our core customer is. We say that they're health focused. They value concierge level care. They're retired, they're vain, they're self-indulgent. No judgment there, no negative or positive. It's just in the baby boomer generation, not the generation before, but who we're dealing with, the 70 plus, 65 plus area. They're family oriented with a strong support system. They seek experts. This is who we're looking for. This is our core customer. They're well informed. They're motivated. They perceive themselves as active, and they have financial liberty. This is who we're trying to approach in our, I'm going to call it a finite marketplace. All right. Here's another question. This is all part of the 7 strata tool that I showed you earlier. And this might be, for the purposes certainly of this discussion, it might be the most important question that we're asking. What do we do? What do we do? We've answered it like this. We say we are the expert source of audiology care to the well-informed and health-focused individual who seeks better living. I'm not a big fan of elevator speeches, but that would be our elevator speech. For our retail organizations, this is what we're saying, what we do. More specifically, we provide hearing aids, vestibular, cochlear implants, tinnitus care, wax removal. That's a big one. We'll talk about that in just a minute. What else? What do we do? We monitor, we diagnose, we educate, we prescribe, we dispense, we treat, we verify, we validate, we manage through prevention, mitigation, encouragement, and education. We manage hearing loss over time. I mentioned earlier, our one phrase strategy is ear care for life. That kind of sums up our overall strategy. This is what we do. And what's important about this question is once we codify it, it becomes what we remind ourselves, most importantly, our staff, our clinical team. This is what we do. Another way of saying this, we're not selling hearing aids. We're not dispensing a commodity. What we provide is better hearing. We're comprehensively treating hearing loss, and we're doing it, managing it over time. And we need to remind ourselves of this. This is what begins to separate us from the commoditizers. Here's another question. Again, it's part of that 7 strata tool that I showed you, and this is how we've partially answered it. It's this. What are your differentiating activities? What separates you from the low-cost provider? What proof do you have that you're different? And so one way to describe it is through your clinical standards and your non-clinical differentiating activities. So for example, one of the things that we say as a standard is that we never want to treat a patient in the waiting room or in the parking lot, unless they can't get out of their car, I suppose. We always want to treat our patient in the treatment rooms. We want to bring them back every time. In other words, we never want to take their hearing aid from them, walk back, clean it, return it to them, and think that's good customer service. We don't want to do that. Here's another clinical standard. We want to look in everyone's ear at every visit. Never let someone come into your office by which you don't look in their ear. And then pray for wax. Wax removal is one of the huge barriers in our business. In other words, a low-cost provider, a direct-to-consumer provider in particular, can't remove wax. Um, Furthermore, most clinics, I'm going to say in America, I walked into and observed hundreds and hundreds, if not thousands, of clinics in the country. Most people are not doing cerumen management. They're either afraid of it or they view it as illegal or something outside of their scope of practice. I've worked in over 40 states in the country, and I've yet to see any law that says it's outside of your scope of practice. And if you'd like to talk about that further, I'd love to. Um, yeah, we can move into wax management. We want to go really manage the entire ear. This is ear care for life. We want to go own the ear, including the ear canal. We're a large proponent of two-handed cerumen management, where you're using a pediatric lens down the ear, which allows you for a second instrument, a curette, to come along and remove the wax gently and professionally. This is a big barrier. Number one, it costs, in order to get the correct equipment, it costs over $5,000. That's a huge barrier that your competitors probably aren't going to move into. We recommend it highly. Big screen TVs. We need to show our patients our work. And this is one way that we can really earn their trust at every visit and have them be releasing their hearing problems to us. We love cerumen management. It's a clinical standard. Um, we don't want to think of anything ever, any appointment, as just a clean and check. We're always looking for the potential and the opportunity to move people forward to better hearing. And most of the time, what that means is just making them hear better with the instruments that they have, because that's the promise that we made. Here's a clinical standard. We want to, at least once a year, test their hearing, and more importantly, verify that they're getting the benefit out of their hearing aid. We use an instrument. You can see in the background here the clinician holding up a visual example of the of their speech understanding. We call it a VOSU, verification of speech understanding. All the tools that I'm sharing, by the way, with you, and you'll see more here as we advance through here, we want to make available to you. I'd love to show them to you. We're proud of the tools that we've developed over time. Here's another clinical standard, really important, and that would be never let anyone leave your office without a next appointment. Remember what we're trying to do. We're trying to capture, of the 7,000 people in our marketplace, example, Tulsa, we want to make as many people active as possible over the course of time. We believe that every clinician can really manage somewhere between 500 and 600 active customers a year. We want to build up that count. That for us, that's a trigger to move into another second clinician, by the way. And so one way that you're going to keep people active is make sure that they have a next appointment with you, something that we measure. In fact, all these clinical standards are something that we want to measure, and we do. Here's some non-clinical differentiating activities. Remember what we're talking about here. We're talking about thriving in this disruptive market where you have low-cost providers coming in. I'm going to zero in on third parties in just a second here, but what are the things that you're doing to separate yourself from the commoditizers? Physician referrals. You may have given a run at gathering physician referrals over the years. We have certainly, as we've kind of hedgehogged this over the years, we have some tools and thoughts that we'd love to help you out with. But it's a huge way to brand yourself in your marketplace to get the support of the physicians. Obviously, patient referrals are another key source as well. Here's another activity that makes us different, is the way that we go source clinicians. I talked about our recruiting resource. We want to bring in the right clinician on time. Another thing that we do is employee onboarding. It's not a week onboarding. It's not a month. We look at it more in terms of like a 2 year. We call it a longboarding process. In other words, we want to bring teammates on that are committed to providing better hearing, that understand what we do, that will live into these differentiating activities. And we're going to come alongside and teach and train and develop a culture around it. The other thing that we do, again, we want to, once we capture the patient, we want to keep them active. And so that we have a very robust remarketing plan. These are at least some of the differentiating activities that we approach this all with. So now we're kind of coming down out of the altitude. This is who we are. We're reaching a finite market. We're focused on a core customer. This is what we do. These are the differentiating activities. This is the foundation that we're going to build. And it takes a while to build this, by the way. That's why I say you're not going to snap your fingers and abandon your third party providership overnight. You got to go build this culture where you know for sure and your staff knows for sure that what you're providing is better hearing. So the third party approach, let's be really clear here. Third parties are commoditizers. They're selling a commodity. They put very little value on what you do. They might throw you $1,000. What they're really doing is really paying for your availability. They're paying for your location, right? That's the value that they're placing on it. They see this mostly as a commodity buying criteria. There are other commoditizers out there. In fact, the weight is on this idea that the hearing aid, what you're providing, is a commodity. Insurance companies look at us this way. The government looks at it this way. This whole idea of the deregulation comes as a result of the government thinks that this is a commodity. Here's the worst of it all. The patient, from the beginning, they've been so conditioned to believe that this is a commodity. So that's the challenge that we have before us. How do we separate ourselves and disciple the marketplace into seeing this as a better hearing solution? That's the buying criteria. How do we do all that? Let's examine what the third party approaches are. Some clinics, what they've done is they've kind of bought fully into the TPA approach, where 100% of the time they're trying to move patients to the third party. Certainly when they get the referral, if the patient has the benefit, they're informing the patient that they have a benefit and moving towards the third party. If they don't have the benefit, what they'll try to do is see if they can't get them the benefit and sign them up for it so that they can run the purchase through the third party. On the other end of the scale, the approach can be you simply don't accept third party. So that when the patient comes in and they have the third party benefit, you can acknowledge the benefit and simply tell them that you don't participate, but that you'll work with their budget. And then, of course, if they're not referred, or if they don't have the benefit, rather, you just simply move forward with a private pay sale. My observation is the vast majority of clinics live in this middle area. And that's what I want to talk about for just a minute here. If you live in this area, obviously most of the time what you're going to do when you get a third-party referral is you're going to honor the benefit. I wouldn't ever recommend anything else. But what happens when they come in and they're not referred and they have the benefit? That's the primary question. It's that middle box there. Typically, what we're going to do is we're going to notify the patient that they have the benefit, but then we're going to try to move them to the private pay option. And there's several tools that are out there. We've developed tools around this idea of how do you educate the patient that they're probably better off if they move over to this private pay sale. I used to believe that you could do this systematically in a scalable kind of way. And in particular, what I'm talking about here is that if you have multiple clinical teams, multiple offices, I don't believe that anymore. I don't believe that you can scale this approach up and stay in the better hearing model business. I think there's too much temptation here to slide in to the commodity business, that your team more than the patient becomes confused as to what we're doing. And we kind of lose sight of what we're doing. And so what typically happens is in this scenario is you end up providing the hearing aid through the third party. In other words, we're not that good at moving them to the private pay. And so we end up with a third party solution. And now here's what happens is we have a hard time not continuing to provide them with the concierge care that we're built up to give to our private pay patients. And so what happens now is that we're dealing with our private pay patients. We've charged them $6,000, $7,000, $8,000 for our service. And we see the conflict when the next patient that comes in and they're a third party provider and we haven't really collected our due really on what we're providing to them. We go ahead and take care of their issue and we're not getting nearly the remuneration that we're getting from the private pay. And so if you don't mind me using this analogy, I think it kind of soils our heart a little bit as a provider. Think about who we're hiring as clinicians. We're hiring good-hearted, servant-oriented folks that want to do the best for their patients, and they want to be honest and truthful. And now we're living in a conflicted world. And so that's why I believe at the end of the day, it's very hard to scale this up. Maybe you can do it as an individual owner where you're sticking to your guns. They've bought a third party. They've been offered the third party and you fit them with it. And now your job is to go collect money along the way in an a la carte kind of way. Maybe you can do it. I just have found it to be extremely difficult to teach to an organization over time. With that in mind, here's what we're talking about. We're saying that we're different, that our model is different, that we're providing concierge level care, that we're managing hearing over time. You remember, what do we do? We treat hearing loss over the course of time, and we're willing to do it. I remember where I was exactly and who phrased this question to me the first time. And I knew as soon as I heard it that I'd keep this question in my back pocket for the rest of my career. I think it's so important to be honest with ourselves when we answer this question. And maybe more importantly, again, if we're working with multiple clinician kind of organization, does our clinical team believe that we're the best value in your marketplace? Are your services worth $8,000? Are they really? How much do you believe that? I use 8,000. I could use, are they worth 25,000? Are they worth 6,000? Are they worth anything over $3,000? Do you truly believe it? I mean, it's like when a patient walks through your door, is the sense of your clinical team that's the patient's lucky day. I mean, they could have gone anywhere else in the world. They could have had a third party benefit and been referred to someone else, but they came into your office. And it is their lucky day. Does your team really believe that? Are you the best value in your marketplace? Here's another question. We talked about core customers earlier. We want to go gather uh, not all 7,000, but 700 of them or 900 of them. Um, how do we go do that? How do we go attract these core customers? Well, remember I said this earlier, the patient believes this is a commodity. They start out that way. If they're not wearing hearing aids, or they are, doesn't matter. If they've never been into our office and we've never had the opportunity to disciple them into knowing that this is about better hearing and not the hearing aid, um, um, yeah, yeah. How do we go? How do we go attract that core customer who's thinking that this is a commodity? Well, what we do, our thinking is, let's go cast a wide net. Let's, it's like I said earlier, I'm not a real big fan of 45-second elevator talks. We've said this often enough. It's like you can tell a lie in 45 seconds and get people to believe you. What I need is 45 minutes to tell them the truth. That the truth of the matter is that best hearing comes primarily from the heart, through the mind, and at the hands of a master clinician. That's the truth. That's what I believe. I do believe that we're the best value in our marketplace. And all we need to do is get them through the door. And so we're going to cast a wide net. We look at marketing like this from a medium standpoint. We don't care if it's online, direct mail, television, newspaper. It really doesn't matter to us. We're going to approach all of those mediums without passion or prejudice. What we are going to do is measure it, however. And so we're going to use whatever medium we can and whatever messaging we can, really, to attract the core customer into our office. And it's at that point that we're going to begin to frame the buying criteria. We really don't stand much of a chance until they come into our door. And then the other question here is, I might say this too about attracting core customers. It is important to dig into the physician referral area, to dig in, become better at patient referrals. Anything that you can do in the online world of managing your reputation, by interacting with your patients in a public way. We love the idea of getting better and better at local clinic marketing. I do believe that's where lead acquisition is heading. And I just see online, by the way, as just a subset as our local clinic marketing. Here's another question that's important. How do you keep your core customer? Once that you attract them in, they're still going to be bombarded by all the insurance benefits, all the low-cost providers. And what we want to do is go to work for the patient when they come through the door. No one comes into our office by which we don't look in their ears. No one leaves our office by which we don't set a next appointment. That's the starting ground of where you but at the end of the day, it's not just customer service. It's going deeper than that. It is going to work for the patient and living into your clinical standards. And then part of it as a leader in your organization is measure your processes, measure to ensure that you're living into what you say you're doing. So I'm gonna we've talked about this more from a higher altitude standpoint. I'm gonna zero in here and we're gonna land on the ground, and I'm gonna give you some practical first steps to really thriving in a disruptive market, battling the third-party provider, battling the low-cost providers. I'm going to say all the resources that we have are proven resources. They've been proven over the last 25 years or more. And I do believe that if to get from here to there, if you want to move in a direction where you're totally eliminating third party from your organization it will start with some baby steps. And on the surface, they might not seem like they're that profound, but I'm telling you, they are very profound. I mean, they are. It's oftentimes the most profound things are very, very simple. Here's one step. I love this tool. This is what we call price anchoring tool. This is not a recommendation tool. It's important to understand when you're dealing with a patient where we are in the patient journey. Here's where we are typically with this tool. They've come into our office. They've been in our waiting room. They've kind of got a feel for who we are, what we're doing, what we're about, a little bit of a feel. They come back to a patient room, treatment room, and we've gone through a case study with them. And we've listened intently. We're active listening. We're walking through and gaining an understanding of the problem that we're dealing with. And we get to the end of that discussion, and we might be asking this kind of question. We're saying, you know, Mrs. Jones, if I find out today, if we find that you're a candidate for hearing aids, are you ready to move forward today? We really don't care what their answer is at this point. We just want feedback. What's happening right now? Give me some insight. They might say, well, it depends on the pricing. Well, at that point, that's a great segue into this next step. Remember where we are. We're 12 minutes into the appointment. It's very early on here. And here's what I want to do here is I just want to recognize that there's different pricing schemes out there in the world. We know what they are, right? And so I want to communicate that to the patient. I'm so glad you brought that up. You know, I love it when they bring up anything, right? I'm going to respond to it. And so I'm going to say to them, you know, when our patients come through the door, they usually have 3 questions right away. First off, they want to know if they have a hearing problem. We're going to find that out today. Secondly, they want to know, am I a candidate for hearing aids? We're going to find that out today as well. And then the third thing they always want to know is how much are they? Well, let me tell you, hearing aids have quite a range. See what I'm doing here? I'm just anchoring them in to what the pricing points are. So I'm saying to them, you know, if you have an early hearing loss, you may have heard of these personal sound amplifiers. We provide those as well. And if you have an early hearing loss, this is a great solution. And they're going to run you somewhere between $500 and $1,500. At the other end of the scale, we have what we call removable implantable devices. You may have heard of some of the implantable devices. This is one that we offer. It starts at $11,000. This is a beautiful solution. If you have the correct hearing loss for this, and your ear canals are such that we can fit you with it, we love this solution. The fact of the matter is, we'll probably not be recommending this today. By and large, what we tend to recommend, and I'm pointing kind of to that middle section here, is somewhere between $3,500 and $7,500. If you want to take advantage of some of the more sophisticated technology that's out there and treatment plans, they start at $3,500. If you want to move up in your treatment plan and technology, it's going to be somewhere in the $5,500 range. And if you want some of the best technology and some of the smallest packages, it's going to run you around $7,500. But we're not going to worry about that right now. Here's what we're going to do. We're going to go find out if you have a hearing loss. We're going to go find out if you are a candidate for hearing aids. And then we're going to talk to you about your budget and your lifestyle. We're going to come up with a treatment plan that's right for you. Does that sound reasonable to you? Do you see what I've done here? I've just anchored them in this idea of this pricing point. They think this is about a commodity. I'm only 12 minutes in. They have no idea how lucky they are. They don't know where we're going now. I do. I've been here before. I'm going to take them through the next, 8 steps, a very defined pathway here to lead them to a final strong recommendation. One of the things that I don't have time, we don't have a lot of time to talk about many issues here. One of which would have been the specific pathway that you walk through. What kind of experience are you giving that new patient coming through the door who's wondering about third party? They've probably already investigated, know they have a benefit, right? What are the steps that you're going to take? We have a defined process here, as well as a defined service pathway process. So this is a great tool. I highly recommend it. If you'd like access to it, I failed to give you my phone number earlier. Uh, I suspect that you know how to get a hold of us on the web, but I'm just going to throw out my phone number. I'll give it to you one more time at the end. It's 512 470 7918. I'd love to talk to you about any of these tools that we're talking about today. I love this tool. I think it's essential if you're going to move people away from thinking in terms of the third party. At the other end of this process is our recommendation tool. This is our final step where we want to make a confident recommendation. Obviously, I'm leaving out all the steps in between, which are vitally important to this process. But remember where we are here. We're an hour and 15 minutes into the appointment. I've done my work. I've gone to work for them. Hopefully, part of the work that I've done is I've removed a bunch of wax from their ear canal, by the way, right? I've taken them through a familiar voice test with their spouse. I've tested their hearing in a comprehensive way. I've explained their hearing loss to them and it really clearly communicated to them, you have a problem. Let's go see if we can solve your problem. I've demonstrated a hearing aid on them. I've likely taken them through another set of counseling questions. Again, don't have time to talk about it specifically, but here I am. I've demonstrated the product to them. I've got them hearing pretty good. Hopefully the spouse is in the room. They're hearing good. I've involved the spouse in them hearing, and I'm saying to them, John, what would it be like if you heard like this all the time? Mary, how would this change your life if John heard you like this all the time? I'm invoking some emotion here. It's important that I'm doing that. I'm getting them excited about the idea of hearing again, you know. And now I'm coming to this recommendation tool. One of the things that you notice on this tool is we ain't talking about hearing aids. We ain't selling hearing aids. We're not talking about the technology. I mean, if I've got an engineer in the room and they want to talk technology, I'll lay them out flat and tell them all about it in 15 seconds. And then I'm back to, recommending the treatment plan. Any question that will do. I love any question, any concern that they have. I'm going to welcome it, embrace it, lean into it, whatever the case might be. But I'm saying now all we have to do, Mary and John, is come up with a treatment plan that's right for you. And let me tell you this, if you can afford it, this is what I'd recommend. And I'm pointing to the 8298. This is what I'd recommend. This is what I recommend to my mother. This is what I recommend to the professionals in Tulsa. By the way, any of these solutions will do. As I'm reading them, seeing where they're at, they might want to move forward at that point. But I'm saying to them, look, any of the solutions that I have here are going to work for you. Just depends on your budget and what you want to do. But let me tell you this. The one in the middle, our advanced plan, is what I call the people's choice. Most people select this choice. It'll do nicely for you if your financial situation is such that you want to consider the 5398. We can work with you as well. Let me ask you this, John, Mary, which of these would you prefer? And I'm just putting it out there to them. And hopefully I've done my job. Hopefully I've earned their trust. Hopefully they see what they're dealing with, that they see this is their lucky day. However, if they don't, if they bring up, hey, I didn't think I was spending that much, or what about my third party benefit? I'm simply going to tell them, in our case, we're going to tell them, well, we don't really work with any of the third parties, but I did tell you earlier that we'll work with your budget. And so I now might possibly move to this basic treatment plan tool. That's on the back side, or it's in another drawer, whatever the case might be. And I might bring that out and say, here's some other treatment plans that we have for you. You see what I'm doing here is I'm very confidently, looking them in the eye. I don't have any second thoughts or conflicting attitudes about the patient I just saw before that I just treated them with third party kind of benefit. I'm telling them, I'll work with your budget. This is your lucky day. And I'm going to say all these things in a confident way. Here's the Sarah. I don't know if you can help me. Never mind. So here's the third tool. This might be the most important tool because it's going to be used more than any other tool in our organization. It's a document that we have at the end of every service visit, which constitutes 85-95% of our visits, right? We like to say it like this: you end every visit with one of four documents, either a purchase agreement or test not treat form or a delivery checklist form or this form right here, the service fee schedule. The biggest thing or issue, the biggest objective that I have as a clinic owner is teaching my team, reminding my team over and over and over again of their value. I want them to believe without a shadow of a doubt that they're the best value in the marketplace, wherever the patient lands in their treatment plan, right? Whether it's $2,500 or $8,000, I want them to believe this. And so even more important than teaching the patient, I need to teach my clinical team of their value. This tool is not a revenue enhancement tool. It's not. It's not about gaining revenue. Will you gain revenue? Probably. What this is about is establishing your value. It's about establishing your value. And so you want to fill this out and record all the things that you've done. Remember how we answered the question, what do we do? This is putting a number, putting a value on every one of those things that we do. So yeah, I've looked in your ear today. I've provided videotoscopy. I've cleaned wax from your ear today. I've cleaned your hearing aid today. I've retested you today. All those are check marks. I've verified that you're getting the benefit. I've reprogrammed the hearing aid, and then we've come back and verified that you're getting the benefit that you need. I'm codifying. I'm putting value on what we do. And it does start with our own clinical team. And over the course of time, I'm discipling my patients to see the value. I'm discipling them to see that we are different, that we're providing different activities than where they can go anywhere else. Very, very important. This is a very important tool if we're going to move and battle low-cost providers, third parties in particular. I said I'm going to offer you 3 practical steps and an offer. Here's my offer to you today. Over and over again, I've showed you some measurement tools that we use. And I think I said earlier, if we're going to start out, this is a long-term approach. We start out with a strategy mindset, a high altitude mindset. And to begin that process, what we're going to always want to do is provide measurement to our processes, if you will. So we have workflow measurements that measure such things as patient visit count, tests per appointment, conversion rate for new patients, conversion rate for service visits. We combine those 2 conversion rates. We like to measure not only our revenue, but we also like to measure, does the patient have a next appointment, for example. We have other measurements like our active customer measurement. Again, we're trying to build our active customer count up to 500 to 600 patients per clinician. We have a wait time report. One of the things that we do that I think is extremely unique that you're probably not getting from anyone else if you're not using us for your marketing is a ROAS report or return on ad spend. The ultimate gold standard on your measurement of your marketing is your return on investment, unless you're doing that consistently. So My offer to you is to give us a call and let us run some process measurements on your business. We're very familiar with uh, cycle, council year, blueprint. Uh, Really, we've worked with most of the the software that's out there in our industry, and from that we can pull out, put it in our own kind of measurement machines that we've developed, and spit out some reports to you, and take a look at your business and see if we can't help you with some of our resources. Um, I want to mention two things that are coming up next month. Our plan is to do another webinar specifically on third party. We're going to invite a couple clinic owners uh, to the webinar and do a kind of a Q&A with them to talk about how they've approached third party, how they've eliminated third party from their business when it used to be a high percentage of their business. So that's coming up next month. Look for that. We also have our annual summit coming up, what we're calling Thrive 2025. It's coming up in January. It'll be in Daytona Beach, January 9th through 10th. And we invite you to come to that. And then one more time, I'll give you my phone number if you want to talk further about this topic or any other topic or resource. My number is 512-470-7918. I sure do thank you for your time today. Thank you for joining us, and we'll see you down the road. Thank you.